The lasagna pan was still steaming when I walked in, but the only thing I could smell was humiliation. Thick, hot, like it had a pulse. Chloe and Noah sat at the big mahogany table, forks clinking against china lemonades, sweating onto Caroline's linen runner. They were laughing, easy, loud, the kind of laugh kids make when they're full. And then there were my kids. Lily and Caleb sat at the kitchen island under the same warm lights, but the glow didn't reach them. 2 empty plates, 2 pairs of small hands folded in their laps. No food. Not even crumbs. Grandma Lily asked gently, "Are we eating soon?" Caroline didn't turn, didn't blink, just sliced into the cheesy center of the lasagna and dropped another piece onto Chloe's plate. "My daughter's kids eat first," she said. "Her kids can wait for scraps." Scraps. The word sliced cleaner than the knife in her hand. Brianna snorted. "Come on, Lily. Don't make it weird. You know how this works." I stood there with my hand still on the doorframe, heartbeat scraping my ribs, trying to decide if I'd heard her right or if this was just another quiet cruelty I'd swallowed so many times it had started sounding normal. Caleb whispered, "It's okay. We're used to it. Used to it." That was the moment my stomach dropped. My son said it like he was describing the weather. I stepped into the light. "Get your backpacks," I said. Caroline finally looked at me. "Julia, don't be dramatic. They ate earlier." "No," Caleb said softly. "We didn't." The room froze for half a second. Just long enough for everyone to feel the crack forming. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't make a speech. Didn't flip the lasagna across the room, though my hands itched to. I just gathered my kids and walked out. But the bruising part came later, 3 blocks away, parked under a flickering street lamp, when Lily asked in a trembling voice, "Why don't they love us, like they love Chloe and Noah?" And Caleb added, "Brianna said we're not their real family." That was the moment everything inside me went still. Cold. Focused. Because I realized the truth I'd been avoiding for 6 years. I wasn't just walking away from a dinner. I was walking straight into a war I should have started long ago. I didn't always walk out of rooms. For most of my marriage, I walked in quietly, shoulders, soft voice. Softer, hoping I wouldn't take up too much space, hoping I wouldn't disrupt whatever rhythm the Hayes family had long before I arrived. The first time Caroline called me asking for money, I was in the middle of a presentation at Redwood Pharmaceuticals. My laptop was mirrored on a conference, dive into a screen. 25 people were staring at me, and my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I ignored it the first 2 times. But on the third, I thought maybe Lily had gotten sick at daycare, or maybe Ethan had been in a car accident. The possibilities stacked in my chest like bricks. So when the room broke for discussion, I stepped into the hallway and answered. Julia Caroline whispered, a tremor, a shaking breath. "Sweetheart, I'm so embarrassed to ask you this." I pressed a hand to my forehead. "Is everything okay?" "No, not at all." Sheets shuffled on her end of the line like she was surrounded by paperwork. Later I'd realized she probably rehearsed those sounds, but in that moment, I felt my throat close up. Property taxes jumped. Out of nowhere. We're short $3,000. I hate even saying it out loud. 3,000. Her voice wobbled on the number like it physically hurt. The trembling, the timing, the way she waited the perfect number of seconds before adding, "I just don't know how we'll keep the house." It all felt choreographed. But I didn't know that then. Back then I only knew 2 things, grief and yearning. My parents had been gone 5 years at that point. A car accident on a rainy interstate. I still remembered the call from the state trooper, the static in his voice, the smell of burnt coffee in my dorm. Since then, there'd been holidays alone, graduations with empty seats, a silence so constant it had become a kind of roommate. So when Caroline said, "Your family now," I felt something warm crack open inside me. I wrote the check that night. Ethan hugged me when I told him. "They're lucky to have you," he said. But there was something else in his tone. Admiration, maybe, or relief. I didn't ask which. 2 months later, at our post-wedding family dinner, Caroline presented me with a small velvet box. Everyone leaned in Martin with his proud dad smile, Brianna with her arms folded, Chloe giggling in her seat. Inside was a key. "This means our home is yours too," Caroline said, placing it in my palm. "You belong with us." It was the exact sentence my heart had been starved for since the funeral. I folded into her hug. I remember thinking, maybe I finally have a mother again. Maybe I'm not alone. Looking back, that was the night I accidentally signed an invisible contract. One that said, if you give enough, love will follow. That contract governed the next 6 years of my life. The request came slowly, at first precise, always tied to urgent need. $5,000 for Martin's medical procedure, $15,000 when a storm damaged the roof, $12,000 when Brianna's ex-husband filed for custody. Each time there was a new crisis, Caroline would reach for my hands, eyes glassy, voice low and cracked. Family helps family. And each time I said yes, because I was so afraid of losing them. I didn't realize I'd already lost myself. I ignored the small cracks, the microcuts that should have warned me, like the way Brianna always introduced me as Ethan's wife. Never Julia. The way Caroline made a big deal out of my salary at dinners, joking that Ethan married up while everyone laughed like it wasn't humiliating. The way Martin hugged Chloe and Noah with both arms, but patted Lily on the head like she was visiting from another country. Those things stung, yes, but it was what happened when I needed help that should have told me exactly where I stood. When Lily was hospitalized with pneumonia, I spent 2 nights sleeping upright, in a plastic chair eating vending machine crackers. I texted Caroline asking if she could stop by for an hour so I could shower. She replied, "Church women's retreat this weekend. Hope Lily feels better soon." Later I learned she'd hosted a wine night at Brianna's. When I miscarried, Ethan was at work and I was curled on our bathroom floor shaking. I texted Caroline again, tears blurring the screen. Her response, "That's terrible, honey. Let me know if you need anything." She didn't come. She didn't call. What broke me most wasn't her absence. It was realizing she'd been posting photos of a birthday party she organized for Chloe that same day. Balloons, cake, smiling family. A grandmother's love in full color. A love she'd never shown my children. But I ignored it. I ignored everything, because belonging had always felt like something I had to earn. And I thought, if I just gave more time, money, grace one day, I'd finally be chosen. I didn't know then that you can't buy your way into a family. But they would teach me, one wound at a time. The thing about slow cruelty is that you never notice the first cut, or the 5th, or the 50th. You only notice when you suddenly realize you're bleeding. That realization didn't come in some dramatic explosion. It came through tiny moments, each one so subtle, I could pretend it didn't hurt. That's how they kept me obedient, how I kept myself obedient. Take the beach trip, for example. 3 summers ago, Caroline said the beach house only had room for 1 family that year. She explained it gently, the way someone might tell you the weather ruined their plans. Brianna's going through so much, she sighed. The kids need stability. You understand. I did. Or at least I told myself I did. But when photos rolled in later, Chloe and Noah building sandcastles, Brianna sipping iced cocktails, Caroline in a floppy hat smiling like she hadn't a care in the world, I noticed something else. The house in the background had 4 bedrooms. 4. The next year, Caroline didn't even bother explaining why we weren't invited. And still I swallowed it. Then came the weekends I asked for help so Ethan and I could try therapy retreats, desperate to fix a marriage that was slowly going numb like a limb that had fallen asleep. Each time Caroline said she was overwhelmed, or Brianna was busy, or Martin was tired. Yet somehow the whole family managed to show up fully rested and camera ready for every birthday quilt festival or craft fair on Brianna's side. It wasn't just exclusion, it was prioritization. Prioritizing them. Never us. But the worst wounds weren't the big ones. They were the quiet ones. The ones nobody else saw. Like the way Lily started asking permission to finish her food. Not from me, from her grandmother. Grandma said not to ask for seconds unless she offers. Lily whispered to me one night, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Because it's rude to look greedy. Lily. My Lily, who apologized when a door creaked too loud. And Caleb, my fearless, messy, dinosaur-obsessed little boy, started shrinking. Shrinking in corners, shrinking in volume, shrinking into himself whenever Chloe and Noah came over. He'd whisper to me, "They don't want to play with me. Grandma says I'm too hyper." He was 6. Hyper was his job. But he believed her. They both did. Because children always believe the adults who feed them. I should have seen it all clearly sooner. I should have connected the dots between every cold smile, every missing birthday call, every holiday gift that accidentally got lost in the mail. But grief makes you hungry, and hungry people take whatever crumbs they're offered. Caroline understood that about me. She weaponized it. One afternoon, about a year before that lasagna night, I picked up Lily from their house. She was sitting on the front steps with her backpack in her lap, staring at the driveway like she was trying not to cry. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I asked. She shook her head. "Nothing." But when I buckled her into her booster seat, she whispered, "Grandma said, it's good Chloe and Noah get more attention because they're real grandkids." stopped breathing for a second. Baby, you're their real grandkid too. But she didn't believe me, because in that house, love was a currency and my kids didn't have enough in the bank. And yet I stayed. I stayed because Ethan never saw the ugly parts. Not because they hid it from him, because he didn't look. Whenever I tried to bring it up, he'd say, Mom loves the kids. She just has an old-fashioned way of showing it. Or Brianna's kids have been through a lot. Or the worst one. You might be reading too much into things. Maybe I was. I've been conditioned from childhood to question my own instincts. Growing up without parents forces you to adapt to other people's comfort zones or risk being alone again. And the Hayes family had given me a place at their table, even if it came with the rules I didn't understand. And then, there was the symbol, the thing I only now recognize as a warning. Caroline kept a wall of family photos in her dining room, perfectly framed, perfectly symmetrical. Brianna's kids, year after year, lined the center, bright smiles and matching outfits. My kids. There was one photo, a preschool picture of Lily printed from a grainy text message I'd sent 3 years earlier. No frame, tucked into the corner of a mirror like an afterthought. Caleb wasn't there at all. Every time I walked past that wall, something in me twisted. But I told myself she's just behind on printing. She's busy. She means well. But one night, as I waited for Lily to put on her shoes, I overheard Caroline and Brianna whispering in the kitchen. Caroline said, "It just doesn't look right mixing them in. The aesthetics get messy, the aesthetics." My children were a design problem. That was the moment I felt the first real crack in my loyalty. But cracks don't become breaks overnight. It took one final blow, one lasagna dinner, one sentence about scraps to split the entire structure apart. And when it did, everything I had ignored came crashing down with it. The car was dark except for the faint glow of the street lamp bleeding through the windshield. Lily and Caleb sat in the back, too quiet. For kids who should have been complaining about being hungry, or tired, or anything. Silence shouldn't feel heavy, but that night it did. It pressed against my ribs like I was trapped in a shrinking room. Lily was the first to break it. "Mom, why don't Grandma and Grandpa like us as much as Chloe and Noah?" Her voice was soft, careful, as if she already expected her question to hurt someone. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. The air conditioner hummed. A car passed by, headlights slicing through the interior like a spotlight. Caleb rubbed his eyes and whispered the sentence that cracked me wide open. Aunt Brianna said we're not real family. My throat burned. My hands tightened on the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. I felt something inside me shift, something that had been sleeping for years. I exhaled slowly. "You are a real family," I said, but my voice sounded thin even to me. "And you deserve better than today." They didn't answer. They didn't need to. Because in that moment I knew what I had to do. Not scream, not confront, not demand apologies from people who had never given me anything but conditions. No, I needed a plan. A clear one. A clean one. A cold one. When we got home, I tucked the kids into bed, kissed their foreheads, and then walked into the kitchen like a soldier crossing a threshold. Step 1, stop pretending this was fixable. Step 2, stop funding the illusion. Step 3, stop sacrificing my children for the comfort of people who never saw us as equals. I grabbed my notebook, the one I use for work budgets, and opened a blank page. I wrote 3 words at the top. No more rescue. That was my rule now. My law, my new operating system. I wouldn't yell, I wouldn't beg, I wouldn't explain. I would simply stop being the safety net they built their lives on. That night, I didn't plot revenge. I plotted freedom. The morning after that lasagna night, my house felt unfamiliar, like I'd woken up inside someone else's life. The coffee maker sputtered loudly in the silence, and for the first time in years I actually heard it, noticed it, felt it. The small domestic hums you ignore when you're drowning. But drowning wasn't on the schedule anymore. I opened my laptop, pulled the notebook toward me, and began what would become the first real audit of my marriage, my in-laws, and myself. The spreadsheet started as a single-column payments to Hayes family, but quickly grew into something monstrous. Every row was a memory. Every dollar was a wound. Every entry was a version of me trying to buy belonging. $3,000 for Caroline's unexpected property tax hike, $5,000 for Martin's procedure, $12,000 for Brianna's custody lawyer, $15,000 for the new roof, $22,000 for Martin's truck, and dozens of smaller, quieter transactions, utility bills, surprise repairs, holiday emergencies. Each number pulled another thread, unraveling the truth I'd wrapped myself in for years. Halfway down the list, I felt someone behind me. Ethan. He stood in the doorway, hair messy. From sleep confusion pulling at his face. "What are you doing?" I didn't look up, adding it all. He stepped closer, eyes narrowing as he scanned the spreadsheet. "When did you start this last night?" His voice softened, almost incredulous. "Julia, I didn't know it was that much." My fingers hovered above the keyboard. "Didn't you?" A long silence stretched between us, thick, uncomfortable, but revealing. He swallowed. "I knew Mom asked you for help sometimes, but I thought it was temporary. I thought they'd pay us back." There it was. The first twist of the knife. He hadn't just been blind. He had chosen to be. My jaw tightened. They haven't paid back a single dollar. He didn't argue, didn't defend, didn't deflect, but he also didn't apologize. Not yet. He left the room quietly, as if retreating to regroup. I stared at the spreadsheet, my pulse steadying as the total climbed. $134,000. It didn't shock me the way I thought it would. It clarified me. It stripped something away, some soft, needy part of me that had always wanted to be accepted, even at a cost. I sat back, exhaled, and felt a strange warmth slide through my body. This wasn't grief. This was ignition, the first flame. I spent the rest of the morning working on a different kind of project, one for myself. Phone calls, research, quiet strategy. Later, when I picked up Lily and Caleb from school, they looked lighter. It was subtle. A shift so small it would have been invisible before. But now I noticed everything. Caleb climbed into the back seat and asked, "Can we get the good mac and cheese tonight? The one with the crunchy top." For months he'd stopped asking for things, stopped expressing wants, stopped taking up space. But now he was testing the waters. I smiled. "You got it." And Lily, my sweet, careful Lily, leaned forward and whispered, "Can I have seconds if I'm still hungry?" Seconds. Something so simple. Something she'd been afraid to ask for. I turned in my seat. In this house, you never have to ask permission to eat. Her shoulders sank with visible relief. Kids shouldn't know that kind of tension, but mine did. And they were unlearning it, one tiny victory at a time. That night, while they ate heaping plates of macaroni and roasted chicken, I prepared the next phase of my plan. I called Dana, my accountant. She answered on the second ring. "Julia, everything okay? I need to talk about stopping some payments." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "Stopping which ones? All of them?" Dana exhaled, slow and knowing. Should have happened years ago. "Tell me everything," I told her. Not the emotional parts, not the humiliation, not the lasagna. Just the numbers, the obligations, the cosign loans, the auto pays, the bank connections. When I finished, she said, "You've been carrying 4 adults on your back. Time to put them down." "I need them to fend for themselves," I said quietly. "Then you do exactly this: cancel all auto pays, notify lenders that you will not be covering future overdue balances, and make them the primary point of contact again. The moment there's no one cleaning up after them, consequences will follow naturally." That word consequences settled into my bones like a vow. After Dana, I called Aaron, the attorney my friend Monica had recommended. Aaron spoke with the confidence of someone who had walked dozens of women through similar storms. "You're not responsible for their debts," she said. "Not legally, not morally. Stop paying. Let the lenders deal with them." I leaned against the kitchen counter, listening to the kids laughing upstairs, real fully belly laughs. "What if they come after me emotionally?" I asked. Aaron snorted. "They will. Count on it. But here's the thing. Julia, people who rely on your silence always panic when you stop whispering." I closed my eyes. Finally, someone who understood. Aaron wasn't done. "And Julia, you're not doing anything to them. You're simply removing the cushion that allowed them to mistreat you without consequence." That line stuck with me long after the call ended. You're not hurting them. You're just not saving them. That night, the house felt like a different place. Not calmer, but sharper, more awake. Like the walls themselves were learning to breathe without fear. I ate dinner beside Lily and Caleb, listening to their small stories about school, the funny kid who burped during reading time, the girl who braided Lily's hair, the science experiment that exploded too early. I realized this was the first time in months I'd heard them chatter without reserve. For once I wasn't half distracted, wasn't triaging someone else's emergency, wasn't anxiously checking my bank account. I was present. And in that presence, something inside me expanded. Not anger, not vengeance, power, real grounded power. Later that week, I took the kids to the park. The sun was soft, the air crisp, the kind of afternoon that should have been ordinary but felt revolutionary. Lily climbed the monkey bars without looking for approval. Caleb raced barefoot in the grass. I watched them reclaim pieces of childhood they didn't even know they'd been denied. Meanwhile, the first tremors were already beginning at the Hayes house. I could feel it. A shift in the air, a pressure drop. The quiet before someone else's storm. I wasn't running from it. I was ready. The first sign that the Hayes Foundation was cracking came on a Wednesday afternoon. I was in my office finishing a project report when my phone buzzed with a message from an unfamiliar number. Julia, this is Linda Hayes. Call me when you can. Linda Martin's sister. The one who lived out in Oregon. The one Caroline always insisted was too dramatic to involve in family matters. I didn't respond. Not yet. I'd learned to finish my own tasks before addressing another Hayes emergency. Instead, I went back to my report, listening to the comforting hum of the HVAC and the distant clatter of keyboards. Strange how quickly peace becomes addictive. But that peace wouldn't last long, because the next buzz wasn't a message. It was a notification from the bank. The mortgage payment, Caroline and Martin's mortgage, had failed. For the first time since the day I'd married into the family, they were responsible for paying it on their own, and they couldn't. I didn't smile. Not even inwardly. It wasn't satisfaction, it was clarity. A clean line drawn between past and future. At 4:07 p.m., another message came from Linda. This time longer. Please, Julia, I need to understand what's going on. Caroline says your finances were controlling them, and now you're punishing them. Did something happen? I stared at the screen. Controlling them. Punishing them. Caroline wasted no time painting herself as the victim. Predictable, but effective enough to fool a woman hundreds of miles away. I texted back, call me after 6. I'll explain. Then I set my phone down and walked into the kitchen for a refill of stale office coffee. Each step felt like I was shedding a layer guilt, shame, responsibility that had never been mine to carry. When I picked up Lily and Caleb later that day, they ran toward me with the kind of energy I hadn't seen since before the Hayes house became an emotional minefield. Lily jumped into my arms, her face bright. Mom, I got picked for the class reading circle. Caleb tugged my hand. And I scored a goal at recess. Recess goals and reading circles. Small things. Beautiful things. The things I'd been too overwhelmed to notice before. We stopped for ice cream on the way home. No occasion. No reward. Just because I felt like it. And for once, I didn't think twice about spending money on joy instead of obligation. At 6:15, once the kids were playing in the living room, I called Linda back. She answered on the first ring. Julia, what is going on? I kept my tone even. Calm, measured. Before I explain anything, I need you to hear one thing. I didn't cut them off out of spite. I stopped paying for them because I had to protect my children. She was silent for a long moment. Caroline said you refused to help during a minor disagreement. I almost laughed. A minor disagreement. Linda, they made my kids sit with empty plates while their cousins ate a full dinner. They told them they were not real family. They taught them to wait for scraps. That's not a disagreement. That's emotional abuse. Linda inhaled sharply. Oh my God. And that's not all, I continued. Your sister has been receiving money from me for years, but she told you I was withholding support, didn't she? Yes. She also told you they were struggling because of me, right? Another quiet beat. Then she said you controlled their finances. No, I cleaned up their messes. They relied on me to fix everything. And when I stopped, the truth finally surfaced. Why didn't they ask me? Linda whispered. Because you wouldn't have given them $134? 000, I thought. But I didn't say that. Instead, I offered, because I think they were embarrassed, or because the lie worked. Linda exhaled sharply. Julia, I'm so sorry. I didn't know any of this. It wasn't your fault, but now you do. When we hung up, I felt something strange. Not relief, not triumph. Closure, maybe. The kind that comes from telling the truth out loud. Over the next few days, life settled into a new rhythm, a quieter one. I stopped checking my phone for crises that weren't mine, stopped waiting for the next obligation, stopped rehearsing excuses for boundaries I didn't need to justify. Instead, I focused on the kids, on us, on rebuilding a home that wasn't standing on top of someone else's collapsing roof. Every morning I made breakfast without rushing eggs, toast, fruit. Nothing fancy, but the kids noticed the difference. Caleb sang. Lily hummed. Their bodies relaxed at the table the way children's bodies should. And in the afternoons when we came home, they'd drop their backpacks on the floor and run through the house freely. Something they never did before, as if they'd been holding their breath for years. One night, Lily looked at her plate full abundant and asked, "Can we invite Aunt Monica over for dinner sometime? I like how she talks to us." It nearly cracked me open. My kids were relearning what safe adults looked like. Meanwhile, across town, the haze storm was gathering. I saw it in the missed calls from Ethan's mother, in the half-written apology texts from Martin, in the rage-filled messages from Brianna demanding I fix what I broke. But the biggest sign came from Ethan himself. One evening, I found him sitting on the edge of our bed holding my spreadsheet in his hands. His thumb traced the numbers, the lines, the dollar signs. His expression was hollow, like he was staring at the wreckage of something he hadn't realized he helped build. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked quietly. I sat beside him, leaving just enough distance to make a point. "Because every time I tried, you defended them." He flinched. "I didn't mean to. I know. But you did." Another small, heavy silence. He whispered, "I didn't know the total. You didn't want to know." His breath hitched in his chest. "Julia, I'm sorry." The apology didn't erase anything, but it landed, softly, real. He looked broken not by me, but by the truth, by the realization that he'd been complicit through inaction, that he'd left me alone in a fight that required two parents, not one woman playing both roles. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning, and beginnings, real ones, are rare. By the end of that week, an unexpected calm washed through my life. Not because I wasn't scared of what would come next. I was. Terrified even. But the fear sat beside something stronger now. Resolve. Not the fiery, vengeful kind. The patient kind. The kind that lets consequences unfold without interference. The kind that knows truth doesn't need to be shouted to be heard. And just when I thought the week couldn't twist any further, I received a text from an unknown number. A picture of the Hayes house, with a bright red envelope taped to the door. A delinquency notice. The first of many. I stared at the photo for a long time, not gloating, not laughing, just understanding. This was the cost of finally standing up, and I was willing to pay it. The first real backlash hit on a Saturday morning just as I was pouring cereal for the kids. The milk carton was still in my hand when my phone started vibrating across the counter once, twice, then a relentless stream of notifications. Caroline. 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 Then Brianna. Then Caroline again. I didn't answer. Instead, I slid bowls toward Lily and Caleb, smiling like the ringing phone wasn't a warning siren. "Eat up," I said. "We're going to the park after this." But the calls kept coming 30 seconds apart, like she was determined to claw through the silence I'd finally learned to hold. Eventually, a voicemail popped up, then another, then 5 more. I didn't listen. Not yet. I learned from Aaron never respond in the heat of their panic. Their panic is information. At the park, the kids chased each other under a cloudless sky, squealing on the swings. Meanwhile, my phone kept buzzing in my pocket like a frantic heartbeat. When we got home, I handed them markers and paper and told them to draw while I handled grown-up things. Then I stepped into the laundry room, shut the door, and pressed play on the first voicemail. "Julia Caroline," began breathlessly dramatic sweetheart. "There's been a mistake with the mortgage. The bank said you removed yourself from the account. I know you didn't mean to. Call me. Please, we can fix this." The second voicemail was less gentle. "I'm shocked, Julia, truly shocked. After everything we've done for you, you would blindside us like this. The bank is threatening late fees. This is unacceptable." The third voicemail cracked. "Julia, answer the phone. This isn't funny. We trusted you." The fourth wasn't even pretending anymore. "You're destroying this family. Do you understand that? Is this your way of punishing us? Of punishing me, I deleted them all. Not out of anger, out of self-preservation." The fifth voicemail from Brianna was pure venom. "You heartless bitch. My kids are going to lose their home because of you. You think you're better than us. You're a nobody. You married into this family and acted like you owned it. Fix this. Now." I leaned against the washer, inhaling deeply, letting the hatred roll off me like cold water. For years, this would have crushed me. Now it only clarified my choices. That evening, as I was chopping vegetables for dinner, my phone buzzed again this time, with a text from building security at Redwood Pharmaceuticals. "Your sister-in-law is in the lobby demanding to see you." Causing a scene. I froze mid-slice. Brianna. Of course. Do not let her upstairs, I typed. 2 minutes later, my office line rang. Miss Turner's security said she's shouting. She's refusing to leave. I closed my eyes. Call the police if necessary. But when he said she brought Chloe and Noah with her, something twisted painfully in my chest. Dragging her kids into this. Even for Brianna, that was low. 30 minutes later, security escorted her toward the exit. Brianna spotted me across the lobby. Her face contorted into something feral. This is your fault, she shrieked, her voice echoing off the marble tiles. My kids are going to be homeless. People stared. Phones came out. The whole building turned into an audience. I walked toward her slowly, deliberately, every step measured. Security stepped between us, but I held up a hand. Let her speak, I said quietly. Brianna pointed a shaking finger at me. You think you're some kind of saint? You think you're helping anyone? You're tearing our family apart? I didn't raise my voice. In a calm, steady tone that carried through the lobby, I said mine were emotionally homeless in your mother's house for years. Her mouth snapped shut. Security ushered her out while she hurled curses over her shoulder, but nothing she said landed. Not anymore. That night after the kids were asleep, Ethan finally confronted me. Or tried to. He stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, face strained. Mom called me, he said. She's terrified. They're behind on everything. She said the bank sent a delinquency notice. They did, I replied. You could have warned me. I did, I said. For 6 years? He flinched. Look, he tried again, voice cracking. I know they've made mistakes, but you blindsided them. No, Ethan, I corrected softly. I stopped protecting them. There's a difference. He paced, running a hand through his hair. But foreclosure, repossession, that's extreme. I stared at him for a long, silent moment. It's not punishment, I said. It's consequence. He froze. What's the difference, he asked. Punishment is when you harm someone for what they've done, I said. Consequence is what happens when you stop preventing harm they bring on themselves. He sank into a chair. I didn't sit. You want to fix this for them, I said. I get it. But Ethan, your mother didn't just hurt me. She hurt our children, and I refuse to keep sacrificing them so your family can live comfortably. He pressed his palms to his eyes. This is too much. I nodded. Then maybe it's time you decide whose comfort matters more. He didn't answer, and the silence between us felt like a cliff edge. 2 days later came the second wave, not from the immediate Hayes family, but from the extended one. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone Caroline had quietly manipulated for years. The first call was from Uncle Ray. Julia. What's going on, Caroline said. You froze her accounts. Then Aunt Susan. She says you control all their money, that you're punishing them because of some misunderstanding at dinner. Then Brianna's cousin, Sarah. She told us you cut them off out of spite, that they supported you for years and you're ungrateful. I listened to each call with a strange mix of deja vu and disgust. Caroline had built an entire mythology, a universe where I was the villain, where she was the fragile matriarch surviving on my charity, where every dollar I gave her was rewritten as something she gave me. But myths collapse under evidence, and I had evidence. When the sixth relative called this one, already angry before I picked up, I decided I was done playing soft. I'm texting you something, I said. What is it? He demanded. A spreadsheet, I replied. And a recording. What recording? You'll hear it. Then I sent it. The full spreadsheet, every dollar, every date, every line of exploitation, and the audio of Caroline saying my daughter's kids eat first. Her kids can wait for scraps. I didn't have to explain anything. The silence after I pressed send was enough. Within 20 minutes, messages from the extended family shifted. Confusion, shock, embarrassment. Then, one by one, we didn't know. She lied to us. Julia, I'm so sorry. We believed her stories about you. But the most telling message came from Aunt Susan. If she lied about money, what else did she lie about? What else indeed? By Monday morning, the Hayes narrative had collapsed everywhere, except inside the Hayes house itself. And that was where the final, most desperate wave came from. It started at 7:14 a.m. while I was packing lunches. The phone rang Ethan's name on the screen. He rarely called from downstairs. He usually just came up. But the tension in our home had rearranged even the simplest routines. I answered. Yeah, Mom wants to talk to you, he said quietly. She's here. Here, in our driveway. I closed my eyes for one long, steady breath. Do you want her in the house? He hesitated. Too long. Just hear her out. No, I said. Not without boundaries. Before he could respond, a sharp knock rattled the front door, the 3 fast bangs like someone pounding their frustration into the wood itself. I opened the door only halfway. Caroline stood on the porch in a wrinkled cardigan hair, unbrushed face, puffy from what she probably thought looked like crying. But the anger simmering beneath the surface leaked through every forced breath. "We need to talk," she said. "No," I replied. "You need to talk. I'll listen." Her jaw tightened. She glanced behind me as if searching for Ethan, then lowered her voice to a dramatic hush. "You didn't have to do this, Julia." "I didn't do anything," I said. "I stopped doing everything." Her eyes flashed. "You ruined us." "No," I corrected. "You leaned on me so hard that the second I stepped away, you fell." Her lips trembled, not with sadness, but with fury barely contained. "The bank is threatening foreclosure. They sent Martin a letter saying the truck could be repossessed. Brianna's landlord is asking for her overdue rent. We can't afford any of this." "That's because none of it was your responsibility in the first place," I said. She stepped closer, voice rising. "You're punishing my family." I kept my tone calm and icy. "I'm prioritizing my family." Something inside her cracked, then an ugly primal sound. "You ungrateful girl," she hissed. "We welcomed you. We gave you a home. And the moment something doesn't go your way, you destroy everything." There it was, the real Caroline, the one beneath the rehearsed tears and shaky breaths. I folded my arms. "You didn't welcome me. You tolerated me. As long as I paid the toll." She lunged past me as if trying to enter the house, but I blocked her with a firm hand on the door. "Don't," I warned. Her voice dropped to a venomous whisper. "You're tearing my son away from me." For a split second, I almost laughed. "No," I said softly. "Your actions did that. I'm just not covering them anymore." Behind her, a car door slammed. "Brianna." "Of course." She stormed up the walkway, red-faced and shaking. "You need to fix this," she spat. "Mom is sick over this. Sick. And my kids. My kids are terrified we'll be thrown out. Then maybe I said you should pay your own rent." Her voice cracked into a shrill scream. "I've been struggling. You know that struggling. With her weekly nail appointments, her spa packages, her beach weekends." Before I could respond, Ethan finally stepped outside. He looked at his mother first. Really looked at her. Then at Brianna. Then at me. "What's happening?" he asked, though the evidence was right in front of him. Caroline hurried to him like a child, running to a parent. "Your wife is putting us on the street," she sobbed. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to, because the next thing that happened was a shift small but seismic. Ethan stepped back from her touch. "Mom," he said quietly. "Stop." She froze. "This is Julia's fault," he said. "We relied on her too much, and I let it happen. I didn't see it because I didn't want to, but it ends now." Caroline's mouth fell open. Brianna gasped. "You're taking her side." "My children," he said, voice firming, "are my side." The air went dead still. Caroline's face twisted, not in heartbreak, but in disbelief that her control was slipping. "You don't mean that," she whispered. "I do." For the first time in our marriage, he didn't wobble, didn't soften, didn't dilute his words for her comfort. He stood beside me, and that more than anything I'd done shattered her. "You'll regret this," she choked out. I met her eyes. "Maybe. But not as much as I regretted letting you treat my kids like they were less than yours." She pointed at me with a shaking hand. "You think you're the hero, now you're not. You're a cruel manipulative." I closed the door, not dramatically, not angrily, just firmly. The thud ended the conversation, but the real complications were far from over. By noon, my phone exploded again, but this time with messages from relatives who had seen the spreadsheet and the audio. Some were furious at Caroline. Some were embarrassed. Some demanded explanations. Some confessed that they too had been sending her money monthly because she told them I refused to help. And then came the final twist of the day. A message from Aunt Linda Julia. "How long has Caroline been telling people your kids weren't really part of the family?" I stared at the screen, pulse tightening. "What do you mean?" I typed back. Her reply came instantly. She told people Brianna's children were the only true heirs. That your kids were just extensions of you. Extensions of me. Not Hayes, not family, just attachments. A chill ran through me. Caroline hadn't simply excluded my children. She'd erased them. And that was the moment I realized the confrontation wasn't approaching. It was inevitable. It was coming like a storm with my name carved into its center. And I wasn't running. Not anymore. I didn't plan the confrontation. If anything, I hoped I could avoid it, hoped that by stepping back, letting boundaries fall into place, letting consequences unfold naturally, we'd reach some kind of silent equilibrium. A quiet understanding, a truce built on exhaustion. But people like Caroline don't collapse quietly. They explode, and they always explode publicly. The final blow-up, the one that would become the story echoed through the entire Hayes family for years, started on a gray Friday afternoon, under the kind of sky that feels like wet concrete. I was pulling into the parking lot of Lily's elementary school for the spring showcase. The gym was already buzzing with parents carrying folding chairs, camera phones held high, toddlers chewing on markers. Lily had been practicing her poem for a week, standing on the edge of her bed, hands clasped behind her back, reciting with her small, careful voice. She'd been nervous but excited, and I refused to let my war with the Hayes family bleed into her moment. I parked, grabbed the bouquet of grocery store daisies I'd picked up that morning, and headed toward the entrance. Kids darted around me, backpacks bouncing, teachers herding them toward classrooms. That's when I heard it. A voice, sharp, frantic, unmistakable. Ethan, stop." My steps faltered. "Caroline." I turned my head slowly, the way someone might when hearing a rattle in tall grass, half dread, half resignation. There she was in the center of the walkway, her blouse, wrinkled hair pulled into a messy knot lipstick, smeared as if she'd applied it while crying. But she wasn't crying now. She was angry. Loudly angry. Ethan stood a few feet away from her shoulders, stiff jaw clenched, his phone still in his hand. He must have just gotten out of his car. He looked caught, like he'd been intercepted in the middle of a clean escape. Teachers paused at the door. Parents slowed their steps. A few kids looked back and whispered. Of course she picked a school event. Of course she wanted an audience. Drama requires a stage. I approached, slowly controlled, keeping my breath low in my chest. If there's anything I'd learned over the past few months, it was this. The one who stays quiet holds the power. Caroline saw me and flinched like she'd been slapped. "Oh, perfect," she snapped. "The queen herself arrives. I didn't bite. This is not the place. You made it the place," she shot back, by refusing to answer my calls, by ignoring me, by humiliating me. Ethan stepped between us, hands raised slightly. "Mom, stop. Not here." She rounded on him so fast he actually took half a step back. "You don't get to tell me where I can or can't fight for my family." I exhaled through my nose, slow, steady, reminding myself Lily was inside that building waiting for me, waiting for both of us. "Caroline," I said quietly, "this is Lily's day, not yours." That hit something raw. Her voice dropped to a cold, cutting register. "Everything has been about you lately, hasn't it? Do you know what we're going through? Do you understand what your little stunt has caused?" I stared at her, expression blank. "Your finances are not my responsibility." "My finances," she echoed, voice rising an octave. "We are losing our home. Martin can't work with this stress." Brianna's landlord issued a final notice. "We are drowning, Julia." "Drowning you created the debt," I said. "I simply stopped paying it." An audible murmur swept through the small crowd forming around us. And yes, there was a crowd now. Parents pretending to scroll their phones, teachers pretending to rearrange cones, 2 PTA moms whispering behind their water bottles. Exactly what Caroline wanted. She jabbed a finger into the air toward me. "You owe this family. We brought you in. We made room for you. We gave you a place to belong." I felt the anger rise, not hot, but cold, precise, like a needle sliding under the skin. "You gave me conditions, not belonging." Ethan winced. Caroline shook her head vigorously. "You're rewriting everything. You're making yourself the victim. You've poisoned my son against his own family." I turned to Ethan. "Is that how you feel?" His throat bobbed. "No," he said, voice quiet but firm. "I see things clearly now." Caroline froze, truly froze. She looked at him as if he'd stabbed her, not metaphorically, but literally. For a moment, she couldn't even speak. Then the rage returned like a tidal wave. "You ungrateful boy," she whispered. "After everything we've done for you." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm a grown man, Mom." "Not to me," she hissed. Something broke in him then, something old, something conditioned since childhood. I could see it in his posture, in the way his shoulders slowly rolled back, in the way his eyes narrowed, not in anger but in recognition. "I'm not your emotional support animal," he said. "Not anymore." Her face contorted with disbelief. "You're choosing her." "I'm choosing my children," he said, "and myself." My breath caught, not with triumph but something close to grief. Grief for him for the years he'd been stuck in the role she assigned him. But also relief because you can't rebuild a marriage if only one person wakes up, Caroline took one trembling step backward. This is all her fault, she whispered, pointing directly at me. She's manipulating you. She's turned you against your family. I kept my voice measured. You did that, not me. Liar, she screamed. Several kids jumped. A teacher flinched. Someone murmured, should we call administration? Ethan's voice dropped to a warning tone. Mom, enough. But Caroline wasn't done, not even close. She surged forward again, voice cracking with desperation. You don't know what we're dealing with. You don't know what the bank has said. They're threatening legal action. They said that isn't my problem, I said. Her head snapped toward me so sharply, I heard the clink of her earrings. Not your problem. You have ruined us. Completely ruined us. You ruined yourselves, I replied. I simply stepped out of the way. Her mouth fell open. She needed oxygen, but rage had displaced it. You think you're justified, she spat, after everything I've done for you? What exactly have you done for me, I asked quietly. She blinked, hesitated, and in that hesitation, the truth showed itself. Nothing. She had nothing to offer. Not a single memory, not a single sacrifice, not a single moment of genuine maternal love. She had taken. Only taken. And now she wanted the world to pity her for losing what she'd stolen. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, didn't lecture. I just said you treated my children like they were disposable. Caroline shook her head wildly. They misunderstood. You're blowing this out of proportion. I never scraps, I said. That's the word you used, isn't it? The color drained from her face. Parents nearby exchanged looks. Confusion, disbelief, judgment. Good. Let them see. Ethan exhaled shakily. Mom, you told my kids they were less than. Caroline clasped her hands together. You're twisting it. That's not... I heard you, I said. And now so has everyone else. The crowd wasn't trying to hide their listening anymore. Phones were out, recording. Of course they were recording. And Caroline finally saw them. Finally noticed the circle of spectators. The camera phones held at chest height. The unfolding scandal she had orchestrated for herself. Her face not sad, not angry, but horrified, began to crumble. This isn't how it looks, she stammered. Ethan closed his eyes. Mom. She reached for him again, but he stepped back. The second rejection, the one that would echo louder than anything I'd say. She turned to me with quiet, shaking fury. You will regret this. I didn't break eye contact. I stopped living in regret the moment I stopped living under your roof. A bell rang inside the school, sharp metallic, the signal for parents to move into the gym. People began walking, murmuring, glancing back at us, as if unsure whether the scene was really over. But it wasn't, not even close. Caroline's voice cracked one final time. I will not lose my son, she whispered. You already did, Ethan said gently, years ago. You just never noticed. Her face hollowed, and with that, Ethan and I walked toward the entrance, leaving Caroline standing alone in the middle of the walkway, shaking, surrounded by the crumbs of her own theatrics. We didn't speak. We didn't touch. We just walked. Lily was waiting inside, and she deserved our full attention. Inside the school gym, the lights were too bright, fluorescent, humming, almost surgical. Folding chairs screeched against the wax floor. Parents shuffled programs, teachers corralled children into neat lines, and somewhere a microphone crackled with feedback. Everything looked normal, but nothing felt normal. I could still feel the echo of Caroline's outburst vibrating under my skin like a bruise forming from the inside. Ethan walked beside me in silence, shoulders coiled tight. Neither of us spoke as we found seats in the middle row. Lily spotted us from the stage risers and waved a shy, hopeful flick of her fingers. I forced a smile, lifting the daisies so she could see them. She beamed. For a moment, the world steadied. Then the gym door slammed open, hard, loud enough that several kids squeaked. A teacher dropped her clipboard, the microphone squealed, and every head turned. Caroline stood in the doorway, chest rising and falling in sharp bursts, eyes wild, hair disheveled, like she'd run her hands through it 100 times. Beside her, Brianna and Martin hovered like backup dancers to a meltdown. Ethan whispered under his breath, "Oh God," but she wasn't looking at him. She was looking at me, like prey. Or maybe like the hunter who just realized the gun wasn't loaded. She marched forward, heels clacking in rapid, angry beat across the gym floor. Parents shifted uncomfortably. Teachers exchanged looks that said, "Should we stop her?" But none stepped in front of a woman that determined. I rose slowly, not because I wanted to, but because if she was going to cause a scene, I wasn't letting her do it with me sitting down like a scolded child. "Caroline," I said softly, "turn around, leave." Her voice was thin, trembling. "No, not until you hear me. This is not the place. It's the only place you'll listen," she snapped. A teacher stepped forward. "Ma'am, if this isn't about a student, I'll need you to." Caroline threw up a hand. "Do not touch me." The teacher immediately backed off. The principal, an older man with silver-rimmed glasses, hurried toward us with the look of someone who'd had far too many years of dealing with unhinged parents. But Caroline wasn't done. She jabbed a shaking finger at me. "I will not be humiliated by you. Not again. Not in front of my grandchildren." The irony almost made me laugh. She was humiliated by me. I wasn't the one who'd followed her daughter-in-law into a school gym to scream. I inhaled slowly. "Caroline, my daughter is about to perform. If you ruin this, oh, spare me," she hissed. "You've already ruined enough." The principal cleared his throat. "Mrs. Hayes, if you'd like to talk privately, no," she said sharply. Everyone should hear this. You could feel the collective ripple of discomfort move across the room. A few whispered, "What's happening?" Others pretended to check their phones but didn't actually look away. Caroline planted her feet like she was taking a stand on a battlefield that only existed in her head. "You think you can turn my son against me," she said, "and I'm just going to sit back and let you destroy this family. No, not today, not again." I kept my tone even. "Ethan chose his children. That's not the same as choosing against you." "Children," she repeated with a bitter laugh. "Your children have always been the problem." Gasps scattered through the crowd. Behind me, I heard Ethan whisper, "Mom, stop. Please." She wasn't listening. "They drain him," she continued. "They distract him. They make everything harder. And now they've made you impossible to deal with." Something inside me snapped, not loudly, but cleanly, like a thin piece of ice breaking under weight. "If you say one more word about my children," I said, "I will ask the principal to remove you." Caroline smirked. "Go ahead. Make yourself the victim again." Ethan stepped in front of me, voice trembling with anger. "Mom, enough." But she swung her attention to him with laser focus. "You're weak," she said. "You can't see what she's doing to you. You've always needed guidance, direction. And now, you let this woman isolate you from your real family." "Mom, you let her make decisions for you?" She pressed on. "You let her control the money. You let her humiliate us. You've always been too soft, just like your father. And look what it's done to us." Martin stiffened behind her, wounded but silent. Ethan's face fell, not in shock, but recognition, the way long-buried truth hits when spoken aloud. Caroline raised her chin. "You were never strong enough to lead this family." "So I did. And now she's destroying everything I built." Something in Ethan's expression shifted. He wasn't angry. He was understanding. Understanding in a way that comes only after you see the architecture of your childhood clearly for the first time. "Mommy said quietly, you didn't build a family. You built a hierarchy." She blinked. "What a system," he continued, his voice gaining steadiness, "where you controlled everything. Every choice, every holiday, every emotion. You didn't want a son. You wanted a soldier." Caroline stepped back like he'd slapped her. "How dare you?" "No," he said. "How dare you treat my wife and kids the way you have?" I ignored it for years. I let it slide. But not anymore. The air shifted visibly. Caroline's breath hitched. Brianna's face drained of color. Martin murmured Ethan, but Ethan didn't look at him. He pointed toward the risers where Lily stood small and nervous and trying to pretend she didn't see the storm unfolding below her. "She's watching," he said softly. "My daughter is watching. And I'm not letting her grow up thinking this is normal." Caroline's voice cracked. "We're your blood, and they're my heart," Ethan replied. A tremor went through her entire body. She looked at me then, not with hatred, but with the raw panic of someone watching a structure collapse that she thought was eternal. "This is your fault," she breathed. "No," I said quietly. "This is the consequence of treating people like they don't matter." Before she could respond, the principal stepped in. "Mrs. Hayes." "I need you to leave," he said firmly, "immediately." Caroline stiffened. "You can't make me. This is a school event," he said, "and you are disrupting it. Please leave before I have to involve security." For a moment, she looked like she might refuse, dig her heels, and escalate, explode. But the murmurs around the gym had changed. They weren't simply curious anymore. They were condemning. Parents were shaking their heads. Teachers were whispering. Several phones were still recording. And Caroline knew what public judgment felt like. Slowly trembling with fury, she reached for her purse. Brianna rushed to her side, whispering frantically, "Mom, let's go." Martin guided her gently by the elbow, though she shook off his touch. But before leaving, she turned back one last time. Her voice was hoarse. "I hope you're happy." I looked her dead in the eyes. "For the first time in years, I am." She recoiled as if slapped. Then she left the gym. The doors shut behind her with a dull, echoing thud. A silence stretched across the room, long, uneasy, heavy, until the principal cleared his throat and said into the microphone, "All right, everyone, let's begin our spring showcase." I sank into my chair, the weight of adrenaline crashing into me like a wave. My hands trembled. My knees felt weak, but my spine remained straight, my face calm. Ethan sat beside me, breathing hard, wiping a hand across his jaw. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Not for himself, for everything. I didn't answer. Not because I was angry, because I couldn't speak yet. Lily came on stage 10 minutes later, holding her poem printed on white cardstock. Her voice shook at first, but then she spotted us meet Ethan, and her shoulders settled. She read her piece with a soft, steady determination that made something inside my chest swell painfully. Her final line was "Every flower grows stronger when it has space to breathe." When she finished, the crowd applauded, but I wasn't clapping. I was crying, silently, gratefully, ferociously. Because in that moment, I realized something. This confrontation wasn't the climax. It was only the beginning. The true reckoning was still coming. And Caroline wasn't the only one who had something to lose. The showcase ended, but the confrontation didn't. Not really. Those gym doors closed behind Caroline, but her presence clung to the air like smoke, thick, choking, impossible to ignore. I felt it in the way parents avoided eye contact as they folded chairs, in the way teachers touched my arm softly, carefully, as if they weren't sure whether to offer sympathy or distance. And I felt it most in the way Ethan lingered behind me, unsure of his place. Lily ran into my arms afterwards, daisies pressed between us. Did I do okay? I kissed the top of her head. You were perfect. Caleb tugged my sleeve. Why was Grandma so loud? I crouched so my face met theirs. Because some adults don't know how to handle their feelings. They accepted that answer easily. Kids are good at moving on from what they don't fully understand. It's the adults who cling to chaos. When we stepped out of the gym into the dusk, the parking lot felt colder than before. Clouds had thickened overhead, swollen and heavy, waiting to break. Ethan walked beside the kids, but his silence pulsed like static. We reached the car. I opened the back door for the kids, helped them, and buckled Caleb's seatbelt. My hands were steady, but I could feel the tremor in my chest, the adrenaline come down, the emotional whiplash. Ethan closed Lily's door and leaned against the car, rubbing his temples. That was bad, he whispered. I locked eyes with him. You think I wanted that? No, he said. I know you didn't. He exhaled shakily. I didn't expect her to unravel like that. You didn't expect her to reveal who she really is. He flinched but didn't deny it. I'm sorry, he said again. I didn't say it's okay because it wasn't, but I also didn't walk away. Instead, I said, we need to talk. Tonight, after the kids are asleep. He nodded. We drove home in silence. Rain finally broke over the windshield, tapping hard and fast like impatient fingers. The wipers dragged across glass, long and slow, matching my heartbeat. Inside the house, Lily and Caleb ran upstairs to change out of their showcase clothes. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the cutting board, still sitting where I'd left it that morning. Carrot's half-chopped knife resting sideways. Normal life. Pause mid-slice. Ethan stood in the doorway, watching me like he was afraid to step closer. Julia. I set the knife down gently. Let's talk in the living room. We sat across from each other, him on the edge of the couch, me in the armchair. The lamp between us cast a soft, gold glow, but nothing about the room felt warm. Say it, I told him. He swallowed. You're right. About everything. About my mom. About the money. About the kids. About me. I waited. He pressed his hands together. I spent years pretending my family was normal. Pretending we were just loud or dramatic or complicated. But today, I saw something I can't unsee. Caroline red-faced and shaking, screaming that my kids were a problem. Caroline shoving past teachers, demanding an audience. Caroline unraveling in front of an entire gym. Julia, he whispered, I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I let it go on this long. I let that sit, let it breathe, let him feel the weight of it. I need you to understand something, I finally said. This isn't just about your mother hurting me. This is about her hurting our kids. Repeatedly. On purpose. He nodded. I can protect myself, I continued. But they're still small. They believed her. They internalized it. Lily asked permission to eat. Caleb thinks he's hyper because she told him so. This isn't a personality conflict. It's trauma. His throat tightened. I know. Do you? I asked softly. Because protecting them means choosing them even when it costs you something. Even when it hurts. He closed his eyes. I leaned forward. What happened today wasn't the climax. It was exposure. Now the real question is, what do you do with what you saw? He didn't answer right away. His voice was barely above a whisper. I choose you. And them. I swear it. I studied his face, exhausted, ashamed but clearer than I'd ever seen it. Then you need to set boundaries, I said. Firm ones. Ones that don't crumble the moment she cries or yells or threatens. I can, he said. Will you? His eyes met mine. Yes. A small part of me believed him. A bigger part wanted to believe him. But even bigger than both was the part that knew his follow-through would determine everything. The front door banged open. The sound was sharp enough to make us both jump. Then came the voice. Caroline's. You think you can shut me out? Ethan shot to his feet. Mom, what are you doing here? She stormed in rain, soaking her blouse mascara running. Brianna and Martin followed reluctantly, each holding umbrellas they clearly hadn't been given time to close properly. I rose slowly, pulse steadying, expression flattening. Caroline pointed at me, shaking with fury. We're not finished. I think we are, I said. No, she barked. You don't get the last word. You don't get to take my family away from me. You did that yourself, I replied. She slammed her palm against the wall. The sound echoed like a gunshot. I have given everything to this family. You gave control, I corrected. Not love. Her eyes burned. You manipulated my son. No, Ethan said firmly. She didn't. Caroline turned on him with the ferocity of a cornered animal. You listen to me. Right now. He didn't move. You're my son, she said through clenched teeth. I raised you. I know what's best for you. That's the problem, he said. You think that. She stepped closer, voice trembling. You owe me respect. I owe my children protection, he replied. Caroline looked at him like he'd stabbed her. You're throwing us away. Because she told you to? I stepped forward. This isn't between you and me. This is between you and reality. Caroline's chest rose and fell in sharp, erratic bursts. Reality. Reality is that you've turned him into a stranger, no, Ethan said. Reality is that you turned me into your emotional caretaker, and Julia is the first person who ever told me I didn't have to be. Caroline's breath caught. I did not. You did, Ethan said. My whole life. I was the fixer, the appeaser, the son who kept the peace, while you and Brianna fell apart over every inconvenience. You groomed me to put you first. Caroline staggered back as if the words hit physically. I'm not doing it anymore, he said. The room went dead still. Martin shifted awkwardly as though seeing his wife clearly for the first time. Brianna's face twisted into something between disbelief and rage. You ungrateful, Brianna started. Don't, Ethan said, voice colder than I'd ever heard it. Do not speak to me right now. She shut her mouth instantly. Caroline's voice cracked into a whisper. So that's it. You choose her. Over us. I choose health, he said. I choose truth. I choose my children. Caroline shook her head violently. No. No. This is wrong. This is all wrong. You don't get to decide that, I said. You don't get to break my family, she screamed. I stepped closer. Your family broke long before I arrived. I just stopped pretending the pieces were whole. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating her face, twisted, desperate, terrified of a world where she no longer held power. You will regret this, she whispered. Both of you. No, I said quietly. We're done regretting. And then Ethan delivered the line that split the air open, Mom. If you ever speak to or about my children the way you did that night, you will never see us again. Caroline swayed. Ethan, I mean it. There was no anger in his voice, no resentment, just clarity, and that clarity cut sharper than any rage ever could. Caroline let out a broken guttural sound, a mix of disbelief, betrayal, and something brittle snapping inside her. Brianna grabbed her arm. Mom, let's go. Martin murmured, come on, enough. But Caroline didn't move. Her eyes wet, furious, devastated, locked on mine. This isn't over, she whispered. She was right. It wasn't, not by a long shot, because the next phase wasn't rage. It was revelation, and what was coming would make this confrontation look like a warm-up. After the blowout in my living room, the house went quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful. It felt suspended, like the whole world was holding its breath, waiting for whatever came next. Ethan sat on the couch long after his parents left, elbows on his knees, hands tangled in his hair. The lamp beside him flickered, throwing soft gold on a man who looked like he'd aged 10 years in a single night. He finally spoke. I didn't think she was capable of that. I kept my voice steady. You didn't think she was capable because you've spent your whole life cushioning her. He didn't argue. He didn't defend her. He just nodded slow and hollow. I sat across from him. There's something you need to know. Something I haven't told you yet. His head lifted slightly. My decision to cut them off financially wasn't impulsive, I said. It wasn't emotional, and it wasn't sudden. He blinked, confused. What do you mean I started preparing months before the lasagna night? His breath caught. What? I leaned back in my chair, my fingers tapping the armrest the way they did during high-stakes presentations. Because this was one. For a long time, I didn't want to see what was right in front of me. Your mother using me. Brianna expecting me to fix her messes. Your father leaning on my income every time something went wrong. I kept trying to be the good daughter-in-law, the good wife, the good everything. I exhaled slowly. But the day Lily asked if Grandma just forgot to feed them, that was the day I started documenting everything. Documenting Ethan repeated, voice tightening. Every payment I made, every bank transfer, every time they called, asking for money, every text, every voicemail, every receipt. His eyes widened. That's how I knew the total wasn't just a number I'd exaggerated in my mind. It was the $34,000. Exact. Clean. Organized. He swallowed hard. I'm not telling you this to throw it in your face, I said quietly. I'm telling you because there's more. I got up, walked to the console table by the entryway, and pulled out the binder I'd hidden behind the photo albums, a thick white binder with tabs and color-coded sections, my quiet revolution, months in the making. I placed it on the coffee table. Ethan stared at it like it contained a bomb. I thought I said gently that if I ever had to defend myself legally or emotionally, I needed evidence of everything. Not just the big things, the small ones too. He opened the binder with trembling fingers. Inside were printed statements, screenshots, dated notes from calls, even copies of handwritten IOUs that Caroline once scribbled on grocery receipts, then conveniently forgot. The further he flipped, the paler he got. Julia, this is a lot. It had to be, I replied. When people like your parents implode, they don't collapse quietly. They look for someone to blame. I met his eyes. I needed to make sure it couldn't be me. He closed the binder, pressing his palm over the cover like he needed to steady himself. Why didn't you tell me, he asked. Because you weren't ready. Because you were still their son first and my partner second. Because you would have talked me out of it, thinking you were keeping the peace. I didn't say those things. I said the one that mattered most. Because I needed to protect the kids, and I wasn't sure if you would choose them over your parents. The pain that crossed his face was raw, unfiltered, human. He didn't deny it. He didn't get defensive. He whispered, You're right. I wasn't ready. Silence settled between us. Not the heavy silence from earlier. A different one. A silence built on understanding, painful but solid. What happens now? He asked. I sat down again, folding my legs under me. Now we take back control. He stared at me. You already took back control. No, I said softly. That was just step one. Cutting financial ties wasn't revenge. It was leveling the playing field. Then what's step two? The truth. His brows knit. What truth? I tapped the binder. Everything they've hidden. Everything they've twisted. Everything they've told the rest of the family to turn them against us. He froze. Ethan, I said your mother has been running a narrative for years, that I'm controlling. Selfish, stingy, that I refuse to help. I tilted my head. But she never told them I was paying her mortgage. His breath hitched, or that I funded Brianna's lawyer. He blinked rapidly. Or that I covered Martin's truck payments. He rubbed his face. Oh my God, your family thinks I abandoned them financially, I said. But the truth is, they abandoned us emotionally while I was bankrolling their lives. He shook his head slowly. I can't believe she... Yes, I said quietly. You can. You just didn't want to. The weight of that truth settled over him like snow. Quiet, cold, undeniable. I leaned forward, voice low and steady. They wanted a war, Ethan. He looked up, eyes burning. And now, I said, tapping the binder again, we give them the only thing they fear more than losing money. the truth. The next morning, the sky was gray, the kind of gray that looks like the world is bracing for impact. I sat at the dining table with a mug of coffee. I wasn't really drinking, flipping through the binder again. Not because I needed to, because it grounded me. Every page was a reminder I wasn't imagining the exploitation. I hadn't overreacted. I'd survived it. At the edge of the table sat the same ceramic mug Caroline once gave me as a Christmas gift. Family First, it read in gold cursive. I used to think it meant I belonged. Now it felt like a warning label. I pushed it aside. Ethan came downstairs quietly, as if the floorboards had become sensitive to tension. He sat across from me, shoulders bent, eyes tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. I called Aunt Linda, he said. That made me pause. Aunt Linda was the only relative on his side who had ever treated me like a human being instead of a wallet with legs. What did she say? She apologized, he said, voice cracking. She said she sent Mom money every month because Mom told her you wouldn't help, that you kept everything for yourself, that you... His throat tightened. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. The lie was old, rehearsed, effective. I exhaled. Your mother's been building that narrative for years. He pressed his palms to his eyes. I feel sick. You're not responsible for the lies she told, I said. But now you understand why I needed this. I tapped the binder. He nodded slowly. Then, she wants to talk. She said she wrote you a letter. My chest tightened, not with fear, not with hope, but with a strange sense of inevitability. A letter. He handed it to me. 3 pages folded neatly. My name in cursive that looked too elegant for the damage it contained. I didn't open it. Not yet. Read it when you're ready, he said quietly. I held it for a long moment before finally unfolding the pages. Her handwriting was precise, controlled, just like she'd tried to control everything else. Julia, the letter began. No warmth, no nickname, just my name. I have started this letter many times, and each attempt has shown me a different version of myself. None of them good. Ethan watched me, read eyes, searching my face for clues. The letter didn't beg. It confessed. She admitted the favoritism, the manipulation, the money, the lies she told the family, the resentment she harbored, the jealousy she couldn't shake, jealousy of my education, my independence, my career. Then came the twist, quiet, almost hidden. I was the outsider child once too, she wrote. My father remarried. His new wife made sure my stepsister had everything: better clothes, better meals, better attention. I swore I would never repeat that pattern. A pause in the ink, and yet I did. I became her. I sat back, heart thudding. Of all the things I expected from her, generational trauma wasn't one of them. But then the letter shifted again, as if she couldn't stay vulnerable for long. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I hope someday for the chance to be better, for Lily and Caleb, if they'll let me. I folded the pages and placed them on the table. Ethan waited. Well, it's honest, I said. More honest than she's been in years. But honesty doesn't undo what she did to our kids. He nodded, jaw tightening. I could see the conflict in him, loyalty, twisted into something unrecognizable, stretched between the woman who raised him and the family he'd built. What do you want to do? He asked. I looked out the window. The sky had darkened to a deeper gray, the kind that carried weight. Nothing, I said. Nothing. She had 6 years to treat us right. She didn't. A letter doesn't erase the nights Lily cried in the back seat, wondering why her grandparents didn't love her. He swallowed. I'm not shutting the door forever, I said. But I'm not opening it just because she knocked once. He exhaled a shaky breath, relief mixed with grief. I support that, he whispered. I placed the letter on top of the binder, the words family first on the mug beside it, reflecting faintly on the table. Understanding someone didn't mean I owed them access. Forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. Healing didn't mean forgetting. I looked at Ethan. This is the counter move, I said, not revenge, numb truth. Boundaries, control. I tapped the binder again. Everything they spent years avoiding. He nodded slowly. What do we tell the kids the truth? I said softly. Just the gentler version. He reached across the table, took my hand. We'll do this together. The gray sky outside finally broke open, rain tapping the windows in rapid, uneven beats, almost like applause, or like a curtain falling. I squeezed his hand once before letting go. We move forward, I said. And for the first time since the lasagna night, the words didn't feel like armor. They felt like direction. 6 months after everything detonated, our house finally felt like a home again. Not a battlefield, not a negotiation table, not a place where I rehearse conversations in my head for hours before speaking. A real home. Soft lived in, warm. It started with small things. The mornings stopped feeling like obligations. No more waiting for Caroline's texts. No more panicked budgeting because a family emergency notification popped up at 6 a.m. No more dread weighing me down before the sun even rose. I woke up early now, usually before everyone else, to the quiet. Real quiet, not tense, not waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just the sound of the coffee machine humming and the faint creak of the house settling. Ethan joined therapy with Dr. Elaine Foster, and it changed him in ways I didn't expect. The first time he came home from a session, he said she told me I was raised to be a buffer, a shield, a parent to my own parents. He let the words sit between us, not running from them, not defending his mother, not minimizing. That's why I kept choosing them, he whispered. I wasn't choosing, I was programmed. Healing isn't instant, it's a long, uneven road. Some days he took 2 steps forward, some days he stumbled, but he kept going. And that alone reshaped the foundation of our marriage. He started showing up in places he used to leave, to me parent-teacher meetings, dentist appointments, baseball practice. One Saturday morning, while Caleb sprinted around the bases, Ethan leaned close and murmured, "For years I let you carry everything alone. Never again." I didn't cry, but my throat tightened painfully. Lily and Caleb were changing too. Lily no longer apologized for asking for seconds at dinner. She didn't whisper anymore. She spoke at a volume normal for a 10-year-old girl with opinions. She laughed more freely. She asked for things confidently. One night while I was cooking, she said matter-of-factly, "Grandma used to make me feel like taking up space was wrong." I froze. Then she added, "But now I know I'm allowed to be here." That single sentence was worth every battle I fought. Caleb rediscovered his voice in a different way. He started drawing again, big, bright, bold pictures that filled entire pages. One day he brought home a drawing from school, our family standing in front of the house. 4 figures, just 4. His teacher wrote on the back, Caleb said, "We're still deciding if the grandparents belong in our picture. We'll add them if they earn it." That line hit me so hard I had to sit down. Kids understand more than adults ever admit. And maybe that's what this whole journey had been teaching them, that boundaries weren't punishments. They were self-respect. Even our dinners felt different now. We didn't eat to fill space or maintain routines. We ate to reconnect. Ethan cooked more. The kids set the table without being asked. We talked about school, about work, about random things like who would survive longer in the woods and why Lily thinks birds look like they're hiding secrets. There was one more shift I didn't expect. Peace. True peace. Not the peace you earn by keeping silent. Not the peace you buy with self-sacrifice. The peace that comes from rebuilding your life with intention. One evening, while I was working late in my home office, a small envelope slid under the door. Caleb's handwriting. "Mom, open it now." Inside was a little index card covered in crayon. A sun. A tree. Our 4 faces stretched smiles. Under it, he'd written, "We like our family just like this." But it's okay if more people join later. Only nice people, though. I didn't realize until that moment how much pressure I'd carried, pressure to fix everything, pressure to orchestrate reconciliation, pressure to teach forgiveness before the wounds fully closed. His little card released all of that. We were allowed to wait. We were allowed to heal on our timeline, not anyone else's. We were allowed to choose who got access to us. I looked at the photo wall in our hallway, the new one. No curated perfection, no forced group shots. Just moments that mattered, messy smiles, pasta nights, camping trips, where the tent nearly collapsed, Lily's science fair ribbon, Caleb's baseball glove. Our story. Our version of family. Not the one I tried to buy. Not the one I begged to belong to. The one we built for people who finally understood each other, finally stood on equal ground, finally breathed without permission. And for the first time in years, I realized revenge wasn't the destruction. Revenge was the peace afterward. About a month after Caleb gave me the crayon card, something happened that I didn't expect, something small but sharp enough to slip under the armor I'd spent months building. It was a Thursday afternoon. The mail usually came late, tossed carelessly onto the porch by a carrier who never rang the bell. But that day, when I opened the front door, a single white envelope sat right in the middle of the welcome mat, perfectly placed. No stamp, no postmark, just handwriting. Small, uneven handwriting. I recognized it, instantly kids' handwriting. 2 names in different colored markers, Chloe and Noah. My stomach tightened, not with dread, with something softer, something uncertain. I brought the envelope inside, sat at the kitchen table, and slid a finger under the flap. 2 folded sheets waited inside lined notebook paper, torn from a school journal, edges ragged. The first was from Chloe. Hi, Aunt Julia. We didn't not know Grandma said those things to Lily and Caleb. We thought everyone was happy. We're sorry. We hope they're okay. We miss playing with them. Below it were little hearts, awkward, lopsided, sincere. The second was from Noah. Grandma says grown-ups fight, but kids don't have to take sides. I think she's wrong. I think we should say sorry when someone gets hurt. So, I'm sorry. Can we hang out again sometime? Only if you want. I read both letters twice, 3 times. Then I pressed them against my chest and let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped inside me since the lasagna night. This right here was why boundaries mattered. Because children grow in the spaces adults fail. They see the fallout, they feel the imbalance, they carry the weight of silence, but they can also break cycles we don't know how to end. I didn't show the letters to the kids immediately. First, I took them to my office and taped them inside a drawer I opened every morning, the same drawer that once held the binder documenting every financial betrayal. It felt symbolic somehow, replacing proof of damage with proof of possibility. That night after dinner, I finally sat Lily and Caleb down. I have something to show you, I said. Their eyes widened when I handed them the letters. Lily read hers slowly, fingers tracing the pencil lines. Caleb read his aloud, stumbling adorably over the words sometime. When they finished, they looked at me waiting for instructions, because for years they never got to decide anything. What do you want to do? I asked. Lily said I want to think about it. But I'm glad they said sorry. Caleb nodded firmly. Yeah. Saying sorry is brave. I kissed the tops of their heads. Yes, I said. It is. A few nights later, Ethan found me sitting on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the kids catch fireflies. Their laughter floated through the warm air, light, effortless, unburdened. He sat beside me. You're thinking again. I'm always thinking, I said with a soft smile. And he pressed. And I'm proud of them, of how they're healing. He nodded. I'm proud of you. I didn't answer. Instead, I let myself lean into him fully without bracing. The cicadas hummed. The porch light flickered. Somewhere in the neighborhood, a dog barked once, then quieted. Finally, I said I used to think revenge meant making someone regret hurting you. And now I think revenge is choosing a life where their hurt can't reach you anymore. Ethan didn't speak. He didn't need to. His hand found mine, grounding me, steadying me, reminding me that survival wasn't the end. Living was. The next weekend, the kids and I baked brownies. Not from a box, real ones. Messy ones. The kind that smeared chocolate on cheeks and countertops. Ethan burned the first batch. Caleb declared the second one perfect, but not perfect enough, and Lily added extra chocolate chips when no one was looking. We sat at the table eating warm brownies with cold milk, the late afternoon sun spilling through the window in soft gold streaks. At one point, Lily looked up at me with chocolate on her chin and said, Mom, are we happy? It was such a simple question, such a profound one. I cupped her cheek. Yeah, baby, we are, finally. She grinned wide and easy. Caleb leaned into my shoulder. Ethan exhaled like he'd been holding the air in for years. And just like that, the years of chaos felt distant, not erased, not forgotten, but distant. The scars were still there, but they didn't sting anymore. Later, when I cleaned the table, I saw something that made my throat tighten. Caleb had drawn another picture in crayon, our family of 4 again. But this time, off to the side, he'd drawn 2 small shapes, not attached, not erased, just waiting. Under it, he wrote maybe later, a timeline on his terms, a boundary illustrated in marker and hope. I put the drawing on the fridge. That night, after tucking the kids in, I stood by their bedroom doorway, watching their calm breathing, the quiet rise and fall of their chests. A simple thought anchored itself in my mind. They thought they broke me. Instead, they built me stronger, sharper, softer in the right places. The revenge was peace, and it was enough. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, if you've ever been the one who gave and gave until there was nothing left, then you already know this kind of peace isn't easy. It's earned, brick by brick, boundary by boundary. If my story made you feel less alone even for a moment, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. There are so many of us learning to rebuild after the people we trusted the most broke us. This story isn't over.